what's up, everyone? It's Tatiana and Stefan, and we have another episode for you. So I thought that I would kick things off talking about what it's like to be an expat, because yesterday, the husband of a friend of mine was traveling to Panama to kind of discover the country and see if it could be the right fit for his family. And so he came over and we had a conversation and I answered some questions. And yeah, it's interesting to me how people are always really curious about Panama. And a lot more people are wanting to become expats now. A lot more people are growing up in a country and deciding, hey, you know, I don't want to live here permanently. And they have the ability and the flexibility to move anywhere in the world. And so they're trying to figure out, well, where should I live? What would be, if I could have the pick of the litter, what would be the country that I'd want to live in? So for us, we decided that Canada was not it. So why don't you, can you share a little bit about our thoughts around Canada and why we left?
Yeah, you know, it just goes to show how different the world is today too than when our parents and grandparents, you know, you live in the same house for 20 years, 30 years type of thing. And today it's like, you know, there's way more options. There's way more flexibility. You can work from home. You can work from your laptop. You can live anywhere you want to live. And so it's such a common thing. In so many different countries, you know, you hear about people all the time that are leaving Canada, the US, and going to different destinations. Here in Panama, there's a lot of Canadians, there's a lot of Americans, people from all over. So even within these countries, there's communities of people that are from Canada or wherever else that have also made the same decision to leave their country and come to a different country like Panama. Canada is an amazing country. You know, I love Canada. It's where we both grew up. We would not be where we are today without Canada.
Very blessed to have been born in Canada, right? And both of our parents, I mean, my parents were immigrants. They weren't born in Canada. Your dad wasn't born in Canada. So we are just lucky that we were born there. It opened up a lot of opportunities for us.
Oh, for sure. You know, and that is such an advantage and a blessing that we had that allowed us to get to where we are. Because if we grew up in a different country where we didn't have the developments and the wealth of that country and the education system and some of those things that it's very easy to take for granted when you grow up in a country like Canada, the US, or parts of Europe or whatever it is. You realize when you travel, many people do not have those advantages. And we know many people, some places in Africa, for example, where we've gone to build schools, who you're in communication with, who it's just so much harder for them to get off their feet, to build a business,
just an example of that. So many years ago, we went to Kenya and we taught a business class to some kids in high school, right? And of that group of kids, a few of them kept our contact information, reached out. One of them, his name is Jackson. And over the years, I've been in communication with Jackson. I've been mentoring him. I've been supporting his education. And just the other day, he emailed me with pictures showing how his entire neighborhood is flooded. Like they have massive floods there right now. And he was telling me how they're trying to figure out, like, they can't even cook food because their stove, like the built-in stove is just flooded. So they have to go and make holes in the ground somewhere so that they can make makeshift fireplaces so that they can cook. And it's just every day there's just no stability. And so when I see those things and, you know, this is someone who is in communication with me and, you know, has a cell phone, but still like the day to day, he's still trying to make sure, you know, he's got a big family to make ends meet, and just being, you know, these natural occurrences make it really hard for them.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not that I don't think no matter what your circumstance is, I always believe in the potential of a human being and that you can still change your life. You can still become successful, create wealth, regardless of where you are, because even people in a village in Africa have found a way. And if they have been able to do that, if there's just one example of that, then that's evidence that you can too.
And Jackson's going to be one of those people.
Absolutely.
Like Jackson, he's an incredible guy. Like I really actually admire him a lot, and I'm really proud of him because he has the mindset, and that's what you need. I know he has the mindset. He's just so willing to learn. He's so willing to grow. He's eager. He's really eager. He wants it all. And he has high expectations of himself, and he doesn't allow his circumstances to hold him back. He says that I'm going to persevere beyond them. And he has a good reason. He wants to support his family. He wants to support his mom. He's got enough motivation to work hard and to move beyond his current circumstances. And so he's just, going to be one of those inspiring examples one day.
Yeah. So shout out to Jackson. But yeah, no, it goes to show in any environment, any circumstance. But yes, you can't lie and deny the fact that in somewhere like Canada, there's many advantages that you have, and it definitely is a lot easier for you to, start to have that foundation of success to create the life that you want. But yeah, no, we love Canada in many ways. But really when it came down to us really looking at our vision, what we want for our lives, where we want to live, what kind of lifestyle we want to have, we really had to look at the environment that we're in and kind of question that and reevaluate. And we both knew that Canada was not going to be the long-term primary home for us, primarily just because of the climate, I'd say is one of the biggest things. I learned kind of early on that, I love the sun. I love being outdoors. I noticed, for example, in Vancouver, which is where we're from, it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And unfortunately, you can't really use the city, the outdoor activities, all that the city has to offer for most of the year, because most of the year it's dark, it's cloudy, it's overcast, and it's raining. I mean, I can remember certain instances where, I'm living in this beautiful penthouse in downtown Vancouver, and, it's got floor to ceiling windows and all this light and everything like that. And, all throughout the day, it's just dark and cloudy and overcast. And I'm just like, this is kind of depressing. I don't want to go out or do anything. Whereas I noticed, for example, during the summertime, Vancouver's a totally different city. People are out and about. They're going for hikes. They're on the seawall. They're at all the parks. It's just a very different city night and day. And I noticed just how that weather, just the climate could affect my quality of life. And,
it's funny you say that, because I actually recall that when we were in that apartment and you have these gorgeous floor to ceiling windows, I actually would close the blinds because even though you still have more light than most places coming in, it's just, you look out and it's just gray skies. And it doesn't, like, I'd rather just like kind of bundle up and be cozy at that time. But I have much less motivation to go out, to do things, to even work, so it affected you, it affected me. And we realized, well, how can we take advantage of Canada during the best time of the year? Those 4 months when it's nice sunshine, perfect temperature, you feel the breeze. It's just amazing. And everyone's out and about. It's just, Vancouver's a beautiful city to be in during the summertime. But live somewhere else for the remainder of the year, because that would be the ideal. And so that's how it started for us.
Yeah. And, Vancouver is also one of those places where the weather is always a topic of conversation.
Yes.
Like people are always either like, oh, if it's a nice day out, people are like in a totally great mood. Everyone you talk to, oh, it's such a beautiful day, etc. And then when it's raining, people are complaining about it. They're kind of down about it. It's just, I've never been somewhere where the weather is always a topic with anybody. Like if you're just talking to someone at the gym or like whatever it is, like the weather is just always a topic in Vancouver. So I know that for me, like that always was a big factor. And I've always wanted to like have a house, but in Vancouver, like I wanted to have a house like with a swimming pool, but I was like, well, I can't even use a swimming pool for most of the year in Vancouver. So it's just certain things like that I just knew it wasn't the long-term primary home for me, and that it would be something like you said, where we can come back during the summertime. So we always kind of wanted to have a home there during summer we can come back to and enjoy friends, family, and all that the city has to offer. But for the rest of the year, how can we have the sunshine 365 basically, which we basically do now.
I do have to say that now that we live in Panama and we do have sunshine pretty much every day, and when it rains here, it rains for a very short period of time, but rains really hard, right? It's that tropical weather. But now that we have sunshine every day, I crave the seasonality of Canada. I crave I crave seeing the rain outside and wearing a sweater and be bundled up and having a movie night. And honestly, as a woman too, you can have a better fashion sense when you have different seasons, because here I want to wear the bare minimum amount of clothing every day because it's always hot and humid and I'm sweating and I don't want to get my nice clothes all sweaty. So I find that I can have a much better fashion sense.
And you know, I could go back to, you know, to tolerate that for a period of time. You know, like, you know, a winter, I'd like to, you know, I'm not opposed to winter or snow or whatever, but it just not when it's all the time, you know, just month after month.
You can appreciate it more when you're not.
Yeah. So, I mean, otherwise with Canada, I'd say like the main challenges that I've had with Canada over time was, obviously the cost of living is just getting out of control. It's very expensive. And the reasons why I'm sharing are actually basically the universal reasons why most people leave Canada, like the people that you'll meet here and people all over that are leaving. You know, it's the cost of living, it's the taxes. It's a very highly taxed country, and, you know, in British Columbia or the provinces. So pretty much like half, you know, at a certain point, half of your income is going towards taxes. Canada's, you know, a fairly liberal country, and so they're always looking for ways to tax you more.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people are
especially if you want to leave the country.
Yes. So it's, you know, whether that's the carbon tax, income tax, property taxes, they've just raised their capital gains tax.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, there's just the sales taxes. There's so many taxes in that country, and yes, you get a lot for that. There's a lot of social programs, etc. But there's been a lot of challenges that many people have had in terms of, yes, Canada has free healthcare, but it's very difficult. Sometimes you're waiting months to, you know, be able to get an appointment with a specialist. You know, there's just a lot of issues with that.
It's not a perfect system. And people who don't live in Canada, they think it is so perfect and so ideal. And of course, there are, again, many benefits to it. It's great that you don't have to pay to go to a walk-in clinic, but you're probably going to be there for a number of hours. And to see a specialist, you're going to have to probably wait half a year.
A long time. So it's just not easy to get the access and the care that you really want. And I have nothing against taxes, but, you know, a lot of people, for example, won't necessarily agree with the ways that, you know, the government uses our tax dollars and what they.
No, definitely not.
You know, a lot of money goes wasted or whatnot. So, you know, like a lot of people, especially over the last few years, you know, just seeing the direction of the country, seeing, you know, how things have kind of played out with COVID and restrictions and mandates, and you know, those things have kind of rung a few bells for people and kind of set some red flags. And for us, you know, we left Canada in 2018, so it was even before COVID. But for us, like being away from Canada during that time, kind of reinforced, I think it was like the right decision for us based on our values and everything.
And just sorry to interrupt, but just on that topic of the healthcare, just to give you guys perspective. In Canada, if you don't have health insurance, let's say, and you want to see a pediatrician, let's say, you know, this was our case. It's going to cost you $1,000 to see a pediatrician. And here, if you want to go to a public hospital here, and so, you know, it's not covered. If you want to go to a public hospital and you want to pay for a visit for a general practitioner, you know how much it costs? $2. If you want to see a specialist, $12. So it is affordable, even though you do have to pay out of pocket. It's manageable, and it means that everyone will have access in a timely manner. And I think, you know, here, of course, you know, the healthcare systems are not great. And I was talking to the nanny here about that, but there are definitely a lot of advantages to a different kind of system. So we do have to kind of rethink things. Yeah.
And just to comment on with Panama, like Panama though, you're talking like the general public. Panama's like the most developed country in Latin America, but is also, or Central America, but it's also, parts of it kind of feels like a third world country. There's like a big division between the poor and the wealthy. There's a lot of wealthy people here in Panama. And if you have some money, you know, like even if you just come from Canada and you're like middle class, you're really, the cost of living is so much lower here.
You'll live like a rich person if you're middle class.
Not necessarily everything, because it still is fairly expensive, but But just in terms of like services and things like that are so much cheaper. And so a lot of people come to Panama for medical tourism because they have in Panama City some incredible hospitals that the doctor's been trained in the United States. But
state-of-the-art equipment.
People come here for stem cells. They come here for, fertility treatments. They come here for a whole range of things just because, you can get amazing care.
Yes.
So those are the things that are not, $2 or whatever, but still so much cheaper to get some of that stuff here with world-class doctors.
Absolutely.
And otherwise just with Canada, I think, those are kind of like the main things I think that we had with Canada, maybe a few other things too, but we left in 2018. So in 2018, we kind of, were achieving massive success in our lives, really starting to think about, okay, what's the direction we want to go? We want to settle down somewhere. We want to, start a family, get married.
But also at that time, one of the reasons we decided to leave Canada was because we had already been traveling the world at that time, and we were spending most of the year traveling in different countries. And then we looked at what we're paying in taxes, and we're saying, listen, I'm working 6 months of the year to pay these taxes, and I'm not even in the country. So it felt like it didn't really make much sense. So at that time we said, okay, let's actually figure out how we can exit.
So we were digital nomads at that point, traveling all over the world. So we're paying such significant amount of the income that we're making to Canada without even really benefiting from Canada. So in 2018, we decided we're trying to figure out where we want to settle down, have a family, get a house and all that sort of stuff, and just kind of planning the next direction of our lives. And I think we just weren't that inspired in Vancouver either. Like already living in a penthouse, like what's after that, what's next type of thing. And so, we decided, we decided to set up our home base in Panama. We weren't sure if Panama was going to be the long-term destination for us because we were actually looking at moving to the United States, but Panama was somewhere that I was already familiar with. I'd been there in 2012. I have some friends that have come to Panama and lived in Panama, online entrepreneurs and whatnot. I knew about the tax advantages of Panama. Panama is a territorial tax system, and so you only pay taxes on income that you make in the country. But if you are making income that's sourced from a country outside of Panama, then you don't pay taxes on that inside Panama. And so that was attractive for us too. The cost of living here, it's very developed, modern. It's a very stable country. It's a very stable economy because of the Panama Canal. It's a huge part of the global supply chain, and it's like a huge advantage that Panama has that generates a lot of wealth. Panama's uses the US dollar as a currency, and it's just a country that the economy and it's developed so much over the last 20 years. It's a place that a lot of people from other parts of Latin America move to. A lot of people actually, they create their residency in Panama because of instability and uncertainty in their country. Like a lot of people from Venezuela, Colombia, here, like in Panama, for example, you can become a resident by buying real estate if you invest like 300,000 or whatever the amount is. And so there's a lot of people in Colombia because Colombia has a very left government that I know a lot of people are really worried about. And so what a lot of wealthy Colombians do is they buy a property in Panama, they get their residency, and that's like a backup plan for them. It's gives them the ability if they need to escape Colombia and, Colombia, for example, they start to implement socialist policies and freezing bank accounts or whatever it is. It's useful for people to have something offshore in a different country that can be a little bit more secure. And Panama also is kind of like a banking haven. There's like so many banks here, like hundreds of banks. It's because of just the logistics here. But there's just, it's a great, one of the better places I'd say to do banking and whatnot in. So just in terms of for us looking at a place where we could settle down, great weather, cheaper lifestyle, allows us to be as a hub to travel all over the world from as well, because they have one of the best airports that's connected everywhere here in Panama. So it just kind of made sense for a lot of those reasons. And we didn't really explore many other places we could have, but I think mostly honestly, I think because my friend Wade, my friend Matt had already kind of
They paved the way for you.
Yeah, they paved the way. They'd already kind of like, they shared a lot of resources with me and helped me tremendously with that process.
Yeah.
And
but yeah, I think also like, because we didn't think it would be our forever home, so we didn't really put too much into the decision to move here. But then what happened was, after we had been spending, you know, a long time expecting to live in the US and exploring places there, we discovered this place here, which we talked about in another podcast. So I'm not going to go over it, but basically we decided, no, this is going to be at least for the next 10 years, this is a great place to raise little kids. And because we wanted to start a family, we felt like, okay, this is it. And in terms of the lifestyle here compared to Canada, there's a lot of advantages, mainly because of the services, as you mentioned before. So for myself, I've hired someone who cleans every day, someone who comes in as a nanny who can, right now, Lucas is in great hands with the nanny while I do this video with you. We have gardeners, we have pool maintenance. We're going to hire a chef next time we come here. So services are very affordable. People are really great here, really friendly. And that changes your life. You know, when I look back to think of how many hours I would spend just doing the dishes every day after every meal, especially when you're really making home cooked meals. I mean, those dishes pile up. The time spent doing dishes, the time spent cleaning the house, the time spent cooking, you know, these are all things that I'm not super passionate about. So I don't really want to invest my time in if I can outsource that. And sure, I could have done that in Canada, but in Canada, you're paying a lot more, you know, like $30 an hour for cleaning. And here, you know, I can't even say what the price is.
It's just so much less.
It's just so much less. So that changes your entire life, the day-to-day of your life, which is what will change your life, right?
There's definitely trade-offs, and what we can get into that. You know, there's pros and cons. You know, so don't think that it's just all great. There's many things about Panama I love, and there's many things I really dislike here. So we can maybe get into that. But just that in terms of like the process of leaving Canada. So that was a big journey for anyone that's interested in becoming an expat and leaving their country, whether that's the US or Canada or wherever else. You know, for us, it was quite complicated. We had a few companies in Panama or in Canada. We had, you know, a number of assets in Canada. And so, for example, like just to leave Canada and to no longer be considered a tax resident, you have to cut ties with the country. You know, you basically have to get rid of your stuff, your car, you know, like so many things I had to basically get rid of. I sold off pretty much everything. And during that time, one thing I enjoyed is like we became very minimalistic. You know, we basically, there's like a picture on Instagram of us leaving with like, we had a few suitcases and stuff.
But that was it.
That was it. We just like lived.
Look at us now.
Now we're very different. We've made up for that.
We cannot call ourselves minimalist.
But for a couple of years, we basically lived out of suitcases.
Yeah, I'm kind of proud of that time, actually. Looking back, I'm like, wow.
You don't need a lot of stuff to be happier by any means. But you know, for us, even for example, like leaving Canada, we had to limit the amount of time that we spent in Canada for several years afterwards. Like one thing, you know, lawyers often say is that if you're going to leave your country, then, you know, you don't only want to maybe come back for a week or two or whatever, a little bit here and there every year. But if you keep coming back to that country and spending months there, then, you know, Canada or the US are going to say you're still living here and now you have to pay taxes here. So there's all these kind of things like that of just departing and leaving, because in order to establish tax residency in a new country and to get out of a tax system of another, you have to establish more ties to that new country than to your previous country. You know, so for me, I got rid of my cell phone plan and my, you know, all that sort of stuff. I still kept a bank account. We both did, just because we have, you know, real estate still that we kind of kept and whatnot.
But what was hard was not being able to go back to the country for very long periods of time, because we have family there. And that was difficult. But at the time, you and I were just traveling the world anyways. We didn't have kids, and so we managed. And sure, we missed our family, but not too much. And I think now is a whole different game, because we have Lucas, and to, you know, deprive our family of spending time with Lucas and to deprive Lucas of spending time with family would be very difficult. So I think if we were to do it all over again, but having kids and having to leave, I think it would be just very different. I don't think we would have done it.
Yeah, I think the timing of which we did things was really good. And I think that's the value of planning. Like we're just always planning, thinking ahead. And especially me, I'm obsessed with like strategizing and planning in my life. Like I'll sit there, like in fact, during that time when I shared this proposition with you and everything, like I had, you know, many of you guys might remember my videos back then in that penthouse, but I had like this glass whiteboard and I'm planning out, you know, all the pros and cons. Like I really evaluate things very carefully, and just I like to always think years in advance. Like I'm already thinking 10 years out.
And I love that about you, because, you know, that's a very masculine quality. And for me, it's really great because I can just relax into that, trusting that you're making really great decisions that are not just, you know, on the whim decisions. You're really thinking and strategizing and thinking of all the possibilities. And so I really get to relax into my feminine when it comes to that, because I really trust in your decisions and guiding and leading as a masculine in the relationship.
Yeah. So, I mean, so there's a lot of planning involved. And also, you know, leaving Canada, for example, there's a departure tax that you pay on, basically as if you've sold all your assets. So if you own real estate, if you own stocks, investments, or even your own business, you're basically, even if you keep your business, which we still did, we still kept our Canadian companies. I had like a real estate investment that I still kept. So there's still assets that we had in Canada, but you're paying the tax on them as if you've sold them. And so you're paying the tax of a capital gains tax, for example, to leave that country on all those assets.
It's one of the most painful taxes to pay, because it's such a large amount. And
I mean, eventually you're going to pay that tax. That often gets deferred in our lives, but when you are departing the country, you got to pay it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a hell of a journey just to leave the country, and then setting up in Panama was no easy task. So we actually, one thing that helped us is we had Guillermo. Guillermo was an assistant that we had that was referred to us by a friend, and he was like $200 a month, and he would do everything that you need, you know, in Panama. And we didn't realize, like when we first came here, we rented an apartment in Punta Pacifica, which is like a nice part of Panama City. And, you know, we met Guillermo, and Guillermo like took us to set up our bank accounts, you know, all of that. Like, we worked with like a lawyer to get our residence here and everything, but it's not easy. This is one thing that we learned right away from coming to Panama. It's not the same as back home. It's not as easy to set up a bank account, a phone plan, all of these simple things that are efficient and streamlined and seem very basic. Back home is a different story in these countries.
We really had to change our expectations, because coming from North America, Canada, and everything is really streamlined there. People are very efficient. It's a very productive type of culture. And then coming here and then kind of having those same expectations, you're going to be, you know, shocked by your experience. And so we would go into the bank, for example, and to open up an account, you know, it just takes forever. Or if you go, for example, my phone still doesn't work. I've been here for years. I've been here for years and I can only use Wi-Fi.
You just have a data that,
My data and I just gave up on it, because you go into the store and you'll spend 3, 4, 5 hours there, trying to troubleshoot. It just, it's a different experience. What we had to do was we were getting very frustrated, because we're like, how does it take this long? Or for example, you're at the grocery store and, you know, you're, you know, buying your groceries, and, you know, there's like 6 people at the counter, and you're like, why can't one of these people bag the groceries? No, they wait until they check out everything, and then once everything's been paid for, then they start bagging it. And so there's little things like that are different where you're from, and you just have to realize it's not them, it's you. This is a different culture. I'm entering this culture. They have a different way of doing things. And so to release that frustration, you just have to let go of those expectations.
Yeah, and there's just many things that just take a long time to get done. You know, like you basically have to, you hire someone for something, and then you have to like constantly follow up with them, and they don't get back to you. And like, it's just, and I kind of learned that's something you have to do. Like you kind of like feel like you're being annoying, but you have to be so persistent. Hey, you know, I'm just following up. Any updates on this? the next day, hey, just following up again. Like, do you have anything from, like you just have to keep doing that.
Yeah, typically, like I would, if it's the weekend, I wouldn't message anyone. Just, it's the weekend. I'm going to allow them to have their time. But knowing that it's going to take them 5 days to respond to you, you change your approach. And here, like WhatsApp is a very common means of communication here. People don't really email back and forth. So if you want to get a hold of someone, you have to, use WhatsApp. And so you just learn these differences, and you learn over time how to get things done. Yeah. But it's just, you have to transition.
Yeah. And otherwise, just in terms of the process as well, like for us, so just to clarify also, like, we still pay taxes in Canada. It's actually very difficult because I think a lot of people look at Panama, Dubai, maybe all these other places as places where they can be tax free. And it's not really the case. So for example, like the way that so first of all, we still have, like living in Panama, we still have investments in Canada and the United States. We invest in, the stock market, the S&P 500 index funds, all that sort of stuff. But basically on dividends or capital gains that you earn from those countries, then you pay what was known as a withholding tax. And so there's no tax treaty between Canada and Panama, for example. And so when there's no tax treaty, then Canada or the United States will withhold 25% of, let's say, your dividends or capital gains on an investment. Like if we own some properties in Canada, and the rental income that we make, we pay, Canada withholds 25% of that. If we were to sell those properties, then 25% of that gets withheld. So, if you're going to own, which, Panama, there's not really, they're kind of, I think is like a stock exchange and all that, but there's just not the investment opportunities that you get. So you're still going to invest most likely in Canada, United States. If the country that you're moving to does have a tax treaty with Canada or the US, then, that gets worked out or whatever.
You're still paying, that would be Mexico.
Yeah, you're still paying a tax though, like whether that's in your country or if it's not in your country and there's no tax treaty, then you're paying the withholding tax. And then we also still had our companies in Canada. So we still kept our companies in Canada. So we're paying the corporate tax. And then when we pay ourselves dividends, then you're paying the withholding tax on that. But one thing we decided to do was we actually set up our companies in Singapore. So we still kept our Canadian companies, but we eventually primarily ran our businesses out of Singapore. And that was a journey too, to look at because the thing with Panama, here's kind of like the downside is in Panama, it's actually a bit difficult to operate an online business because one is that, like, for example, if you use PayPal or Stripe in your business, well, you actually can't connect PayPal or Stripe to a Panamanian bank. So that's kind of a conundrum because, you can receive money from PayPal, but you can't actually withdraw it to a bank. And so there's kind of those logistical things that are kind of a bit of a headache here in terms of running and operating a business. And so we actually, after doing a bunch of research and exploring different places, Singapore's got one of the best banking countries in the world. There's better banks than in Canada or the US. And we went to Singapore, we worked with a law firm there and everything and set up our companies, our bank account and all of that. And the benefit of Singapore is that there's less taxes there. There's like a 17% tax. I think the first $300,000 you make or $100,000, there's like no tax or low tax, but then it becomes just a 17% tax. But a big advantage of Singapore is there's no capital gains tax and there's no withholding tax when you pay from your company to, let's say, yourself in Panama. And then in Panama, you don't pay any taxes on, let's say, dividends that you receive from, let's say, Singapore, because that's considered income that's outside of the country. On the other hand, let's say that you decide to move to Panama and then you decide to set up your company in Panama and run and operate it. Well, even though you might make money from, let's say, the United States or wherever, and that gets sent to your company in Panama, you're not paying any tax on that because that's outside of Panama. But if you're a Panamanian resident and now you're getting paid from your Panamanian company, that money is going from your company to you, that's now money that's made inside Panama. And so you pay taxes in Panama for that. So the bottom line is you don't completely avoid taxes. You can reduce your tax load. And us, we still, again, in Canada, we pay taxes. In Singapore, we pay taxes, and now even here in Panama as well. But it's much less than what you'd pay, for example, when I look at us living in Canada. And one of the advantages that, like, financially and strategically of this decision that we made is it really allowed us to accelerate our wealth, our lifestyles, because you know, we are both really high income earners, and we've given millions of dollars to Canada. So I feel good about what we've contributed in tax wise, but we've now been able to save significant amounts of money that basically have allowed us to build our house, to, you know, live a life that would have been probably years, like taken many years more. If we was stayed in Canada, we wouldn't have been able to create this life, this freedom, being able to retire young and kind of live this sort of lifestyle. So it really helped us accelerate that. And who knows if this will be the place we live forever. I think, you know, we built this house here. I kind of always see us coming back here, and maybe eventually this becomes a vacation home for us and we live elsewhere. But, you know, at least for the next 10 years, we see ourselves living here. And then maybe once our kids are in high school, at a certain point, you reevaluate things. But I could always see myself coming back here because this is paradise. This is a beautiful environment to be a part of.
It's really gorgeous. I mean, I wish you guys could see the view. I wish we could flip the camera around, but it's, you know, pristine, beautiful blue ocean, and we're right here on the beach, and trees. It just feels really unreal. And, you know, I've been getting questions on Instagram. Oh, why don't you show more your house and, you know, do more videos and stuff? And I almost feel bad because I really feel like it is, you know, it's paradise, and I feel like I get to live such a great lifestyle here that I'm almost like, I know it's my own issue to deal with, but I'm almost like ashamed to share it because I don't want people to feel, you know, bad about, you know, their own,
you know, those are, you know, everyone can interpret something in a different way. You know, you can either be inspired by something and be like, oh, wow, that's what's possible. That's the life that I could live, or look, you know, that's where they were and they were able to create this. Like, that's a possibility for them in their life. Or it might trigger an insecurity or jealousy or whatever, but can't take any responsibility for that. That's that person's issue.
The way we've always kind of viewed it when it comes to sharing these things, we've always been very transparent over the years. You especially, you know, sharing, you know, how you earn your income, you know, as much as those details. We've always said, like, yeah, this is for the people who will see this and will be inspired by it, who will see it and will see what the options are, what the opportunities are out there. Because maybe people don't know this is an option, you know, maybe you do end up moving to Panama or some other country and you become an expatriate, and it completely changes your lifestyle for the better. And so, yeah, this is it's a slice of heaven for us here. And like Stefan said, I don't think this is going to be forever. I think once our kids grow into teenagers, you know, I think we probably will, you know, maybe you want to live in Europe. Maybe you want to try a different continent. You know, who knows what the future holds.
That's the beautiful thing about life. You know, you have so much life ahead. And yeah, like for me, I want to experience, like, we bought a place in Sun Peaks in Canada that's primarily investment, but it's a place like, I'd like to go live in a mountain resort for maybe a year, you know, or a couple months out of the year and get into skiing and snowboarding and live that kind of life. Or I wouldn't mind going to Europe and living there for, you know, a period of my life. Like I like to experience different ways of living life. And for me, it would be a shame not to, in the totality of my whole life, to not have experienced the different varieties and lifestyles that can exist.
And that's what we did. I mean, we've been now here in Panama for, I don't know, 8 months or so. And this is like the longest stretch that we've been in one place, I think, in like almost a decade, because we had been traveling so much. We would spend, you know, no more than a few months in a place for a period of time for years. And so we had so much variety in our lives, experiencing different countries, different cities, and all thanks to the laptop lifestyle. That's what made it possible for both of us, not just, you know, one of us. It needed to be both of us so we could enjoy this together. And now that we've been here for like a longer stretch, you know, after you've had so much variety and you've traveled so much, you actually want the stability of being in one place for a longer period of time. So now when people ask us to travel or to go to events or whatever it is, we're always like hesitant.
We're very comfortable now,
we've gotten really comfortable with just being in one place and just having our routines and just having our things. Because, you know, when you're traveling so much, you don't have your things. You're always in someone else's bed. You're always, you know, using other people's stuff. And it's nice to just, this is our home. We can really call it our home now.
I think that was a really good strategic thing as well. And I think this might be useful for people. It's like, I kind of really believe in planning your life, strategizing. And I think the sequence in which we did things really made sense.
Yeah.
And obviously there's ideals, not everyone can do this, but for us, because we were so young and didn't yet have the responsibility of kids or whatever it is, we were really able to kind of plan out our lives and live our lives in a very logical, pragmatic way to set ourselves up to this point. So I think, for example, the way like we did it, and I think can work for a lot of people, is, you know, when you're young, really focus on your personal development, your growth, take risks to invest in yourself, start your business, create your success, do all of that, because it's, I think, really one of the best times to do that is when you are younger and you have the energy, you have the low responsibility, low, costs and things like, you can take the risks, you can kind of set all that up.
And you have the time to fail, because you have to understand that in order to become successful, you're going to fail multiple times, and to not see failure as a reason to not continue doing to not continue achieving your goals and your dreams. So failure is just a stepping stone towards that success. Both you and I have failed countless times before really creating that success, and that failure is what propelled us towards the success. It's the experience that we learn from each of those failures. So that's all part of it.
Yeah, you're more open-minded, you're willing to learn things, be a sponge, absorb things, the motivation. There's a lot of things that I think come with that earlier stage that you can really channel into creating and setting up your life.
And also when you're young, I don't know if this is everyone's experience, but for me, I just feel like I'm so much more open-minded, and I'm not set in my ways. I'm not set in my beliefs. I felt like as I've grown older, and I'm only 30 years old, but if I compare back to 20 years old, I have certain beliefs now, certain ways of thinking that I'm much more like, this is how it is. This is what I believe. This is my way. And I know, and I'm a bit more stubborn. Yeah. And I think that the younger generation looks up at the older generation, like your parents, and you see that in them. But it's that flexibility when you're young, that ability to be the sponge, to be moldable, to be adaptable, to be open-minded, that really opens up the door for a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Even I think, like, for me, when I was young, like, I always looked up to like heroes, you know, I looked up to these naively role models. Yeah. Like I wanted to be like this person or be like that person. And so everything that they would say, I just absorb it and just want to emulate them and all that. Cause you're still in that stage where you haven't been
burned by life.
Yeah. Or you just don't know who you are. You haven't created your identity and solidified it yet and all of that. So I think that was like a huge advantage when you're young, to take advantage of all of that. And
it's that naivete of believing that, and it's the naivete, we call it naivete, but it's really the truth. Like, the truth is that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to, that you can achieve whatever you want. You can have a dream that's so far out of your reach and you don't know how you're going to get there. But if it's your dream and you're going to work hard towards it, you will achieve it. You have that strong belief. And as you get older, what happens is you start to believe in all of your challenges and all of the obstacles between you and your dreams. And then you start to believe that you won't be able to achieve it.
Become more realistic, about things.
And who says that reality is, the best
and that's why, like, for example, when it comes to planning your life and creating a vision, I always tell people, like, imagine you're like a kid. You ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he's going to say, I want to be the president. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be, like, there's no limits on the imagination of kids. And then as you become older, you're like, oh, well, I can't do that because of this. And, oh, that's not possible for, And you have all these reasons. And so I think even as you are older, it's not to say when you get older, you still can't keep that open-mindedness, that flexibility, that dream, that vision. I think you always have to maintain that and not allow the experiences of life to weigh you down, to limit you, to hold you back. But definitely as you go through life and you've had more painful events, those events are pivotal moments in your life, because they can create limiting beliefs. They can create, things that you now try to avoid in your life, and you have to be conscious. So that's why I think learning personal development so young is so useful, because as you go through those experiences, you can be aware, hey, how can I process this event so it doesn't become a limiting belief in my life? How can I reframe this? How can I look at this in a different way? What did I learn from this? How can I grow from it? If you don't know how to deal with traumas and you go through it, then you're just going to allow those traumas, those pains, to now create barriers in your life and prevent you from living your life and creating the success that you want. So
the awareness is always a key word in my life, in your life. And I think that when you do personal development, you realize how gaining a better sense of awareness, a better sense of self is really going to benefit you for the rest of your life, because a lot of us are very unconscious to who we are. And when you talk about traumas, Gabor Mate is a wonderful resource on trauma. And what he says, it's never about what happened. It's never about the event itself, but it's really about how you internalize it.
Yes.
It's about the awareness of what is going on in the mind. How do you feel about it? How did you process it? That's what can create the trauma in someone. And so when you become aware of things that were unconscious before, things that were traumatic and were unconscious, but you're bringing them to your conscious mind. And by bringing them to your conscious mind, you now have an ability to move past them.
For sure. And so going back, I think like doing a lot of that personal growth when you're young, focusing on your success when you're young, that is just going to pay dividends for you as you go through life. You know, it gives you such a huge advantage as you go through life. If you already have a certain mindset to get through certain experiences, you already have freedom or security or whatever it is in your business. And then I think also traveling, like for us, traveling the world at a young age and doing that before having kids was really beneficial, because once you do have kids, you can still travel and everything, but everything now changes. Like that, you know, if we did travel or do certain things, it's just, you know, there's nap times you have to be aware of. There's just certain places. Like one thing I remember we consciously decided to do before having Lucas, we said, okay, what are all the countries that we're going to go to that we're probably not going to go to once we have young kids,
AKA the more dangerous countries.
Yeah, so let's go to, you know, Ethiopia. Let's go to like whatever those countries.
Or the ones that are very far away.
Yeah, far away, difficult to get to, and all that. And then the more like we didn't do Europe. We've done a bit of Europe, but we didn't really do a lot of it because we thought, hey, you know what, Europe is a place we can go when we have kids.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like we kind of like even planned that out to that extent as well. But I think just because we traveled so much, like we went to 50 countries, many countries we went to multiple times, you know, living the digital nomad lifestyle and everything, getting that out of a system, like we always said to ourselves, let's just do this now and live this life. And then once we settle down, have a home and set all that set up, then we're not going to have that desire to travel as much. Yeah. And I think that's been true, is that like, we don't have nearly as much of a desire to travel. Even in fact, as we got closer to, like before we had Lucas, but like it got to the point where we were just kind of really done with traveling. I remember we were in Italy and we decided to come back early. You know, we had like a 3-week trip planned and we're there in Positano and, you know, Amalfi and all that.
It's actually our honeymoon trip.
It was our honeymoon trip. And we're just like, yeah, we miss like
it's just another beach.
It's kind of we're kind of now uncomfortable, you know, just here and like it's time to
when you've had so much variety, you crave the comfort of and the certainty of being in one place, and that's just how life works. You know, the grass is always greener on the other side. I think also, you know, traveling before you have kids is valuable because it's a lot cheaper. You know, it's a lot more expensive buying those extra seats, and just a lot more to manage. And a lot of moms I've met here, a lot of them say, you know, it's not really a vacation when you go with your kids. And so oftentimes they say, sometimes they go, you know, separately now. I mean, of course there's places you want to go with your kids and, you know, have fun, but it's a lot to manage little ones, especially. It was a great plan to do that. And I'm glad we did that in advance, and we gained an incredible cultural education, which is not something that you can learn from a textbook. But I think the key to traveling at the young age wasn't just to go and travel and spend all of our savings and incur credit card debt, which a lot of people do. For us, the key was, listen, I'm doing this while I'm building my business. And that is the condition, that I'm not going to go and travel and enjoy myself unless I'm moving forward with building my business. And so that was key for us. I remember one of the first trips that we took, we went to Thailand. And what we would do is we would work on our computers all day, you know, into the early afternoon. And then, you know, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. hits and we're off to the beach. And so you get the best of both worlds. You get to enjoy your travel, but you're also building your business. And that's the beauty again of the online business. I will never stop raving about building an online business just because of that freedom, that mobile freedom.
That was like one of the best times, you know, when we were always in different countries and different cities, and you know, and we were working our asses off. I mean, I think the challenging part was like every environment we're in, we had to like film YouTube videos or whatever, you know, it's just setting up, you know, you're in a different place and everything. But for us, you know, we were like, basically our lives during that stage was our businesses, our relationship, and, you know,
fitness.
And then fitness and, you know, we'd find ways to enjoy every destination that we're in. And so it's just an amazing lifestyle to have. And some of the places we went, like the cost of living was a lot less too than what it cost in Canada. Like Thailand, I remember, you know, we'd go to the gym and then we'd like go eat the street food. You know,
so we would go to the gym and then we actually brought our own protein powder with us, and we'd go to the smoothie vendor on the street. And we'd say, hey, can you make us this fruit smoothie, but throw in 2 scoops of this protein? And they actually at one point said, no, I'm not doing it anymore because it gets my blender dirty.
All the powders like stick to their blender.
To the blender. So, but that's what we would do. And we would go out for dinner. We'd get like $2 for chicken skewers. And so we were living very inexpensively in some of these countries that we went to. And so that way we were, you know, actually like felt like we were getting paid to travel because we were making so much more money in our businesses than we were in our paying in our travel and our rent. You know, if we were to stay in Canada while we were building our businesses, we would have incurred much more expenses in just rent and paying for groceries.
And I think all that traveling, it really helped us to basically be able to, one, move to another country because we were so used to and comfortable traveling and, you know, being in different places and everything, but it also helped us. All that experience helps you make better decisions. You know, it helps you evaluate opportunities better. We were able to evaluate Panama and living here because we had been to so many other countries. You know, even when we found this community, it was because we had been to so many other places and lived in different places that we were able to make a decision that we felt good about because of our previous experience that we accumulated. So life experience is such an important asset to have in your life. And you know, they say that success is the result of good judgment. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. You know, so by making some poor judgment, making mistakes, pushing your comfort zone, that experience allows you to make better judgment and better decisions in your life. So one thing I want to ask you, going back to Panama, is what would you say, like you met with someone recently who was thinking about moving here. What are the things that you would say to someone? What are the things that you said to him? What would you say are some of the pros and the cons? Because there's definitely pros and cons.
Well, I think I touched on some of those already, but I would say for me personally, one of the biggest pros is the services. So again, for me having a nanny here, which, you know, it's funny because if you were to ask me a year ago, do I want a nanny? How many disagreements did we have over that? Right? I did not want to have a nanny because I had this idea that a nanny would be replacing me and that I want to be involved with my child. I want to make sure my child has a secure attachment to me. I had all these misconceptions about what it was to have a nanny. But now, a year into being a mom, I see it completely differently. And in fact, I'm very grateful that I can have a nanny who's giving one-on-one attention, who's now known my child for 6 months and has formed their own great relationship together. But for me, that is such a great alternative to daycare. I'm really not a fan of daycare, of the system. And so to be able to afford someone to be with my child every day, give that one-on-one attention when I'm not, like I'm very available to Lucas. Having a nanny does not mean that I'm not with him all day. I'm with him most of the day, but it means that when I need to go and do something, run an errand, film a video, do some work, or go to the grocery store, do something for myself, go to the gym, someone is there that I trust who can take great care of him. And so that has changed my experience of being a mom. That has changed our relationship, the dynamic in our relationship. So that, and then also, you know, the cleaner. And so these services, I think, are one of the biggest pros for me, I would say. The second thing is just being so close to nature. I love the ocean. I'm like a little fish. I like to see the water. I like to feel it. I like to just be in contact. I go barefoot on the grass. And for me, knowing that I'm bringing Lucas into this world, I wanted him to be in a backyard. I wanted him to have the experience of growing up in nature. I was always very blessed. We always had a backyard growing up, and we would climb trees and we'd catch snakes. And I was like, that's the childhood that I kind of want for Lucas. I don't want him to grow up in this very sanitary environment of an apartment and not really have, get his feet wet and get muddy. And so that was another big thing for me being here. Disadvantages, I would say that, there's like the language barrier, which I'm pretty good at Spanish now, so it's not a huge disadvantage for me anymore. It's pushed me to learn another language. I would say another pro is that, like, raising Lucas here again, I wanted our son to grow up in another culture and learn Spanish. Spanish is an incredibly valuable language. We know he's going to learn English, which is also an incredibly valuable language. So for him to grow up here and be exposed to a different way of living, a different culture, and then have that contrast when he goes back to Canada, I think that's incredibly valuable for him as well.
Yeah. I'd say for me, like weather, the lifestyle that you can have, the services that you can have, all of those things are incredibly valuable to have here. In many ways, for the cost of money, you can have a better quality of lifestyle here. And I would say, like, but there's kind of some things, like, I don't know if I would be able to live in Panama full time if also I didn't have the option of going back to Vancouver during summertime. So for example, like, if I was only here, both of us, like, all year long, and we didn't be able to go back to Canada for 3 months or whatever, I don't know if I could do it. It's the ability to kind of go back and forth that I really value a lot, because as great as it is to live on the beach and live in this community, some of the downsides would be that it does get maybe over time can get a little bit boring. You're kind of missing the city life and the activity of that, or even just kind of missing living in like a first world modern environment. And so whenever we do go back, like right now we're going to be back in Canada in a week or so, like I always look forward to it. And when we go back, it's like, wow, like the roads are so nice, and the sidewalks and the parks, and like all these things that people drive in a more civilized way, like all these things that the contrast of that is really valuable. So I think the fact that, like, I love it here, but I don't think I could live here 365. I still need to be able to get away from here and go to a city or go to North America or whatever it is. So I think having the two home type of lifestyle is a really critical thing.
But you know what? I think I agree, and I feel the same way. But I think that is because of all the years that we spent traveling, and we've conditioned ourselves to liking that kind of variety.
Yes.
So we need that kind of contrast because it's our personality types. And I think when you look at someone who is different, like my brother, for example, he has no problem living in the same neighborhood that he grew up in for the rest of his life.
Yeah, if you're used to that and everything, that's great. But I'd say, I guess some of the cons for me is, like, also I don't know if I would live here. So when we first came here, we spent the first couple of years in Panama City, and Panama City it's a beautiful city. It's very developed, incredible skyscrapers and high rises, and we've stayed in some really great places there. But at the point that we both are kind of at now, we're not big fans of Panama City. Like, whenever we go to Panama City, which is about 2 hours from where we are, we have to go there for errands or shopping or whatever it is. It's just, the driving is chaotic. Like, people are not great drivers here. People will cut you off. They'll tailgate you. People don't use turn signals. They'll swerve right in front of you with no notice, no signal. And so there's things like that that's a little bit chaotic. And then just like the layout of Panama City was not like, whoever designed the city or planned it out, like, did not do a good job. Like, it's just very difficult to drive around that city.
I don't think they factored in the expansion.
Yeah.
So
So just like being in the city, and then just like all the honking and all that, it just feels like this very stressful, chaotic type of environment wherever we go there. And then it's not like, one thing I love about Vancouver is that it's a great walking city. Like, you live downtown. I didn't have a car for years. You just walk everywhere.
Yeah, I love
That's amazing. You walk from one side of the city to another in 20, 30 minutes.
I love walking.
And it's great. Like the sidewalks are great. All
and
of
cycling
that.
too. If you're into cycling, like it's
Yes.
safe. There's cycling lanes, and
Panama
there's a
City,
seawall.
there's
Yeah.
It's not a great walking city. That the sidewalks will have big cracks in it. There's no on ramps or off ramps if you have a stroller.
And that's I guess where the tax dollars go, right?
That's where it goes. Yeah.
So
if you walk your dog, there's not like places that your dog can go take a pee or poop, or like there's just certain things like that just wasn't much thought.
Those are the things that you notice when you land in the country.
Yes. And it's also very hot here, so it's like very hot, very humid. It's always in the 30s, 32 to 35 degrees, so it's quite hot. And so it actually limits what you can do during the day, because during the day it can be so hot. Like we like tennis and things like that. We usually do that in the morning and then in the late afternoon, evening time. So that kind of changes things.
So for example, we're usually up around 5 a.m. because the sun rises around 6:30. We want to take advantage of the morning as much as we can, because once it's about 10 a.m., it's already really hot out, and you're probably not going to go out again until 5, 6 p.m. So that does limit what you can do. I mean, some people can manage it, but it gets very hot. So yeah,
and I think like the other reason why it works for us is like we're both fairly introverted. We love family and friends, but we're also very comfortable, and have been just based on our lifestyles of traveling, just being away from family and friends for longer periods of time. And so that's one thing I think that's very difficult for a lot of people if they're considering becoming an expat is, yes, you have to leave your family, you have to leave your friends. It's changed things for us in that regard, where we still have friends back home and people that we communicate with, but it's, we're in a community here, but it's a lot harder to find. You can find friends here through, if you play tennis and golf and paddle, and there's people here you can connect with and be friends with. But like when I'm used to back in, for example, Vancouver, is like I have friends that are, really into personal development. They're into this niche and online entrepreneurs. It's hard to find those niches when you're in a place like this that doesn't, maybe it's harder to find people that are into the same things that you're into.
I would say that if you're an extrovert, it would be a lot more challenging to become an expat, to leave your family and friends, because they mean so much for you. And if you're seeing people every day, talking to people every day, I think that would be a huge transition. But another thing is that when you do move to a country, one thing that you need to factor in is there an expatriate community? Because, for example, in certain places, I mean here even, but for example, Costa Rica, there's a great expatriate community there. And what you'll find is that when you're part of that community, you might find it even easier to make friends, because you have that thing in common. You're about all expats, and expats want to meet other expats because they also want to build community. They've also left their family and friends, and they want to build a sense of community. So in some ways, you might find that it's easier to build a community away from home.
People can be easier to meet, like especially I'd say like where we are. It's easier to meet because people are kind of bored here in some ways. It's like a much slower lifestyle in the beach community that people are they're looking for people to also hang out with and connect with. Like you've met a lot of moms and put on, mom events here and things like that, which is really cool. And so,
but I think that's also just the difference of living in a city versus living in a, more suburban area or beach life, because the pace slows down a lot.
I remember like in Vancouver, you don't really talk to your neighbors, people in the elevators and things like that.
People on the phone walking down the street.
Yeah, it's not as friendly as opposed to being in a community where people value being friends and meeting people and stuff.
So on another note, do you know what's coming up at the end of the month?
The end of May?
Yeah. End of May.
Yes, it's our 10-year anniversary.
10 years.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not, it's not nothing. Why don't we talk a bit about relationships? We've been now together for a decade. That's a very long time to be with someone. And I would say that we are in a conscious partnership, and we strive to have a conscious relationship. What does that mean to you? What do you think that means?
Yeah, we're both, I guess, conscious in the sense of, we are very committed to both, first and foremost, living the best lives that we can, being the best versions of ourselves that we possibly can be.
Yeah.
We're both committed to growing in our capacity to love, to connect, and we just want to live the happiest, the best possible lives that we can.
Yeah.
And because we're both conscious and aware, going together through life, we're always trying to make things better and move in a higher direction in both of our lives. And so we're always trying to do what's best for the greater good of our relationship, for ourselves, for our family. And when we get caught up in a pattern of selfishness, ego, negativity, or whatever it is, because I think we're both committed to being conscious, we have the awareness of like, okay, no, that's something I need to work on. I need to move past this. I need to let this go. I need to, we take responsibility for ourselves and our own challenges, and are both committed to growing to be the best that we can be.
Yeah, I think that there is no other way for a long-term relationship to last. It has to become a conscious relationship. I think that in the early stages, you can get away with being in an unconscious relationship for, 5 years or so. But as the time goes on, you need to develop that awareness within the relationship, awareness of self, in order for it to be a long-term relationship, because there's no one else in the world who's going to mirror you and bring up your own shadows and trigger you in a way that your partner will, because they're in your life every single day. They see you at your best, they see you at your worst. And so I think that for me, what it means to be in a conscious relationship is, first and foremost, we are both growing as individuals independently. You have taken it upon yourself to commit yourself to your own personal growth. That means that you have the awareness to identify, is there anything that I need to work on? Is there something that is challenging me in a way that's causing pain in my life or pain in my relationship? And you've committed yourself, and I've committed myself to working on that. I don't need to push you. I don't need to torment you about these things. Like you just take it upon yourself because you are growing as a conscious individual. And for you, that is the priority, is to grow as your individual self. And so for me as well. So I think that's like the baseline, that's the premise of building that conscious relationship. And then in doing so, then you come together as two conscious individuals to create that conscious relationship. And for me, what that means is that we're not contributing to each other's suffering, that we're not trying to create traumas for the other person. We're not playing any games here. We're trying to support each other and be a partnership in this game we call life. And that's what I think a relationship is for, is to have someone that you share life's joys with, and you share life's challenges with, and you help the other person through it. You're not trying to make it harder for the other person. I think that's the attribute of an unconscious relationship, when your partner is making it harder for you to life is hard enough as it is. There's a lot of unexpected things that happen. A lot of things out of your control. And so I think that your safe place should be your relationship. And I love that we can do that for each other. It doesn't mean that it's a walk in the park. It doesn't mean that it's always perfect, that we're always, sunshine and rainbows and everything's okay. It just means that we're always committed to, if we fall off track, that we will get back on track. We don't allow things to go so off track to the point of no return, because we're conscious. We're aware of when it gets to that point.
Yeah. I mean, when you make the commitment and the decision to be with someone for the rest of your life, you like, why would you want that to be a painful experience? Why would you want there to be conflict and challenges and all of that? It's in your best interest to make things as great as it possibly can be, because it's in my best interest for you to be as happy as you can be. It's in my best interest, because if you're happy, then that's going to affect me.
Absolutely.
If I'm happy, then that's going to affect you. And I think a lot of people, they can get to a really bad place in their relationship where they are so separate from each other, and they're like attacking each other, and it just gets to this negative place. And it just takes one person just owning up, becoming a leader, taking responsibility, and saying, no, if I focus on meeting your needs and making you happy and fulfilling you and just doing everything that I can, then that's going to come back to me. That's going to impact the relationship. The saying of happy wife, happy life applies both ways. And so I think, like, for me, I know that the purpose of a relationship is to amplify human experience, to amplify our lives. It just amplifies everything, and is also an opportunity for us to grow. But the key that I recognize is that this is a place that I go to give and not get, that I need to focus on meeting your needs and supporting you, and take the responsibility of that. And in doing so, it's going to make everything better. Like I need to first also focus on myself to this extent where if I'm happy, if I'm joyous, if I'm in a great state, then that's also going to impact you as well. So it's just an aspect of life that I feel that many people can neglect and just not, they kind of avoid it because there's a lot of pain in relationship at a certain point. But if you always have to consciously and proactively improve it, try to make it better, learn about relationships, learn about your partner, step up and focus on giving. Like it's just an aspect of life that as long, the more you give to it, the more you'll get from it. And you just have to take on that mindset.
Yeah, I think where we've been led astray in our culture is thinking that the relationship is about me. The relationship is a place where I get something for me. And the danger in that thinking is that, well, if the other person's thinking that too, well, you guys aren't going to get along so well. And I think that the relationship is the place where you go to give. Yeah. And when you approach it with that mindset, and when you have a conscious partner who also does that too, that creates such a beautiful opportunity to create something so special, where you really are now in a partnership, where you really are there to support each other's personal growth, spiritual growth. You really feel like you are in this together. And I think that's just what a lot of people want when they're single and they want a relationship. They want to spend their lives with someone because they just want to spend their lives with someone. They want to share. We're social creatures. We are made to share. When we have success in something, it doesn't feel as good until we share it with someone else. Yeah. And I think that the relationship is also something that you have to realize requires constant attention. Yeah. And oftentimes what we do is, once we do find ourselves, we work so hard to attract the person that we want, right? Yeah. We put on a show, we look our best, we act our best, we are in our best manners. And, we have a few years of that, and there's that honeymoon phase. And then once you've locked that person in, maybe you've been with them for a number of years, or you've moved in with them, or you've gotten married, then you get comfortable and you get complacent, and you think, well, I've already got this person. So you no longer dedicate the time that you did when you were first trying to attract this person into your life. You no longer dedicate that time into your relationship. And that's a huge mistake, because when you don't put your time resource into working on the relationship, it will die. Because what happens is we're all constantly growing on the day-to-day basis. Some people more than others, if you're really actively pursuing your personal growth. But whether you realize it or not, we're all growing based on the experiences we have today, this hour, etc. And you're either going to grow together or you're going to grow apart. And when you're not actively putting that effort into your relationship, into reflecting, okay, how did we do this week? Is there anything that bothered you? Is there anything that really, triggered you? Is there anything that I said or anything I did? And how can I make it better? And how could I have done that differently? How can I meet your needs at levels 9s and 10s? Like, that is called being an active partner. You're really trying to put an effort into, and to being a great partner in the relationship. And that takes time. And so when we neglect that, when we get comfortable, when we think that, well, I've already got this person locked down, let's focus on all these other things in life. Yeah. You can only do that for a certain period of time, and that's okay. Maybe you can do that for a year, but it comes a point in time when your partner's going to feel that neglect. You're both going to feel it. And if you're not conscious, if you don't have that conscious relationship, that's when a lot of relationships end, because it's the point of no return.
I'm always fascinated by how many successful people that I know, or entrepreneurs, who put so much of their time, attention, energy into growing in their business and their success and creating results in their life, but don't put even a fraction of that towards their relationship or some of these other areas of life. And I remember one person going over to their house, a successful person, and I was looking at their books at their library, and I saw all these business books and marketing books and investing books, and I'm like, thinking to myself, where's all the relationship books? Where's all the health books? Like, where's all the other things? And I could see from that person, I'm like, yes, you've got great results here in your life. You've got great success, but like, look at your relationship and look at your health. Like, look at these other areas of your life. Like, do you not see that those are areas of your life that are more important than success and money and your business, etc.? And what good is all the success and the money and all of that if you don't have a great marriage, a great relationship, if you're not happy, if you don't have a great relationship with your kids? And it's basically the same thing. Like, look, like, the reason why you became successful is because you focused on it so much and you bought all these books and you read all these books and you applied all those things. Why not just do the same thing for your relationship? Why not just do the same thing for your health? Why not just do the same thing for anything else that you want? Because they take it for
granted. We take it for granted. I think that's kind of human nature. And
but
I think
if they did, though, they would have an amazing relationship. So it's like not that complex. It's just applying what you applied here in this one area of your life to all the other areas of your life.
Yeah. I think people think sometimes that a relationship is supposed to be easy. And I think that it is easy if you put the time into it. You know, I think that our relationship is easy. And I think that one of the important factors that makes it easy is that we are compatible in more ways than, you know, when we met each other, of course, we were attracted to each other, we fell in love, but that wasn't the deciding factor in do we want to be together. We also factored in, okay, do we share some of the same values? You know, things that are really important to us in life, the big decisions in life, do we have those in common? Because if we don't, that's going to cause a lot of strife. But I think that the key thing is realizing that in order for us to get to this point of being together 10 years, it's because we put the time into it. It's easy because we commit ourselves to dedicating, okay, there's, you know, this hour a week or this date night, or we're going to do this relationship journal. Those little things are what make up the success of a relationship, not just because we met each other, we have some things in common and the rest is easy. No, I think anyone who's been in a long-term relationship can attest that the relationship ebbs and flows in many ways. And, you know, there's times where you're very attracted to your partner and there's times where you're not. And there's times where you go through a lot of challenge and stress in life and it causes issues in the relationship and tension. And there's times where, you know, things are a lot easier. And that's because that's what life is. You know, there's nothing stable about, you know, going through your life. And to be in a relationship means learning how to navigate all of that and to be there for your partner during those times and to be able to support them.
I think it's easy if you understand relationships. It's very difficult if you don't. You know, like if you understand the feminine nature, if you understand the masculine nature, if you understand men, if you understand women, if you understand certain principles, then it's a lot easier versus like being in the dark and not knowing and understanding. And then so many people, I see them like criticize their partner. I'm like, don't you know, like that's one of the worst things you can do. And here's all the reasons of why you shouldn't do that. And, you know, that just like just certain patterns, behaviors, things that are just totally, like it's almost like relationships. There's certain universal principles that if you apply them, you're going to have an amazing relationship. And if you don't, you're not going to have a great one. But like nobody teaches this to people. And there's so many principles. Like if you just read books and learned about relationships that are applicable for everything. Like there's so many, like even a simple thing is like how people I find in relationship, they try to like meet the person's need, but they're not really trying to meet the person's need. They're actually really just, they have their own need that they're projecting onto the partner. And they think that if I do this for them, then that's meeting their need. Instead of thinking, no, that's my need. What's their need? What do they need? Yeah. And why don't I find out what that is and then meet that for them? Yeah. And so what happens is people say, oh, I gave them everything. I did all this for them. Like you see this in movies and stuff. Oh, I provided the house for them and I gave them money and I did this and this. It's like, but you're missing like that, like what was their need?
That's what you think
that's
that
what
they
you
needed.
Think that you're doing and that you're giving. You're giving everything to them except what they really need.
And that's where the awareness comes in.
Yeah, if you understand your partners, like what are their love languages? What are their 6 human needs? What are their top values? Yeah. Like if you actually understand certain things, what does it take for them to feel love? What is it like? You have to, you know, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so when you understand your partner and you understand these principles and these dynamics that exist, it's just a total game changer. Even if you understand that when your partner reacts a certain way and has a certain response that more often has nothing to do with you. More often it's something within them that they're suffering through. Sometimes maybe they're testing you to see if you really love them and they want reassurance. Sometimes it's, understanding how to create safety in your relationship. Like there's things that you just have to understand that are what's beneath the communication. What are the sub communication that you have with your partner, and being able to like that. It's just understanding. It's like a different language that when you understand it, it's easy. If you don't understand it, you're like, I'm listening to Chinese and you just can't get anything that's being communicated. Totally. And it just makes your life so much easier when you just know this stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think like just investing a little bit of time into reading some relationship books and maybe doing a seminar and just like very basic things, like it really changes what you know, and that will change the quality of your relationships. And so we both have this foundation of knowledge about relationships, and masculine and feminine is a big thing too, understanding those energies and the dynamics between masculine and feminine. 5 love languages. These are very these are simple principles that you don't need to, study them for years to really get a grasp on them. Very basic things that when you understand it, like a lot of people, when they communicate, they're just communicating with words. They just hear what the other person's saying. And what they don't realize is that most of communication is beyond the surface. It's beyond the words. It's the sub-communication in the physiology. It's in the small details. And a lot of times what people say is not really what they mean. And so when you realize that, like when you say something that maybe I could get offended by that, or I could be hurt by that tone, or I could be hurt by, but I realize like a lot of it is my interpretation. So is that really what the truth is? But then I also think, okay, well, what does that mean for you? Are you just saying this because, you're really stressed right now, or did something, I'm thinking beyond just the words, because if I just take you for your word, then I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to be upset all the time. It's going to be really hard to be in relationship if we're just hearing the words.
Yeah. And if you can be in a conscious place where if your partner's upset and they're angry at you or whatever it is, and not be reactive and triggered by that, and just seeing that this is just someone who's hurting. This is someone that just needs my love. This is just someone that needs my presence. That, there's been times where, you can be in a really low place and say certain things you don't mean, but the ability just to like not take that personally and just be like a rock, to be solid in that moment and just be like, I don't care what you say. I love you no matter what. And just not being affected. And the reason is like, like for us, both of us, we know each other's intent. We know each other's heart.
Yeah.
We both know that we're, pure souls. I know the person that I love. And I know that people are not their behavior. We've all acted out and behaved and said certain things that are just not consistent with who we are. We've all had moments in our lives where like we acted in a way, then afterwards we're like, I can't believe I said that. Why did I say that? I'm embarrassed of that. Right. And so when you know who the person is that you're with, and this is just a challenge that they're going through, a stress, and you just don't take that personally, and you realize that, that will pass. And then, you understand even emotional states and how we can all act and behave in certain ways that are crazy in certain states. And then you can be in a totally different state and have a totally different interpretation of reality in that state than you did in the previous one. Like, it's useful to know these things and understand it and be conscious of these things, because then it just changes the game. Yeah,
most of what people say actually has nothing to do with you. And so that's a key thing, is to not take things personally, really learning how to not take things personally. Whether it's a comment on YouTube or it's something that your partner said, oftentimes it has more to do with them than it has to do with you, especially if it's something mean or cruel. It's really just a reflection of the state and the suffering that they're in. But I think what's important also is that we have certain boundaries that we just don't cross. So, we don't threaten our relationship. We don't threaten each other with divorce or separation. We just don't go there. We don't swear at each other. We don't say F you or whatever. Let's just not go there. That's just not a place that we need to go. Yes, there's times where we're really upset or really, we get emotional, but there's lines that we don't cross, and that protects the relationship. And we agree to those boundaries when we are in a place of sanity, when we can make those agreements together.
There's no excuse to ever treat anyone poorly. There's no excuse ever to criticize people, and especially to the person that you love. If you have a problem or an issue or a conflict in your relationship, then communicate to that person in a mature, evolved, developed way. You know, if you're angry, if you're upset and you can't control yourself, then exit the situation and remove yourself to put yourself in a place where you can be calm and neutral and objective and all of that. And then go to your partner and say, hey, listen, you said something to me and I reacted in this way. And, I feel like that was disrespectful towards me, or what, like, you can resolve things in a mature way, and rather than dropping yourself to such a low level where you're basically treating someone as in a way that's just, you shouldn't treat anyone, like more people like treat their relationship and the person they love the most. Like if you treated a friend that way, or like other people, like you wouldn't have friends in your life. So this is the person that you're supposed to love. And and when you communicate with them in a certain way, like many people, they don't realize they're creating more issues than solutions. Like if I were to yell at you and call you mean things, whatever, that's actually only going to come back to haunt me. Like it's going to lower your self-esteem, make you feel worse about yourself. It's going to create separation. It's going to create anger, resentment, all of it. Like it has no benefit, like in any way. Like we're a team. We're trying to, like, you're a part of my life. You are my life. So like, why would I make my life worse by treating the other person
you're
in
unconscious?
this way?
And that's the difference between being conscious and being in an unconscious relationship. An unconscious relationship causes itself all sorts of pain and suffering. It's self-induced.
It's just so stupid. Like it's just not an intelligent way to live your life. You're basically creating a worse life for yourself. And, you just have to, if you're with someone, like, try to make, even if like there's people that are together and they're just fine, they've determined they're different people and maybe they're going to stay together for the kids or whatever, like you still at least have to decide, okay, we're going to create a civilized, positive, dynamic relationship between us. We want to make sure we're as happy as we can be in this life and what we share. So let's just have an agreement to be civilized and mature and all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of, childhood wounds. There's a lot of psychological issues. There's a lot of things to it. And that's where the growth comes from is, how you are behaving in your relationship is a reflection of your psychology and your consciousness. And if you're into personal growth, you have an awareness, hey, shit, like I got to work on myself here, because if I'm acting out in this way and behaving like this and this and this, I've got a lot of stuff that I need to improve. Well, and my relationships is bringing that out in me. Exactly. It's nothing to do with them. It's just something that's triggering my fears, triggering my insecurities. And that's why I'm behaving and acting in this way. And you got to take responsibility for that and say, you know what, I've got a lot of work to do and I need to evolve and become a better person.
Yeah. And I think that that's the beauty of being in a long-term relationship, is that it creates an opportunity for some deep spiritual work. And I think that it's really important to recognize that opportunity, because it's really when you have this foundation, this trust with someone, that you can really open yourself up and you can heal each other. You can not only help them become aware of things that are from their unconscious or shadows, but you can also help in the healing of your partner. So it's a deeply spiritual experience to be in a long-term relationship if you see it that way, if you choose to see it that way. So sometimes, it'll be the end of a marriage when there's, childhood wounds and traumas that have been triggered and they just, they can't get past that. Or you can say, oh, wow, this is the opportunity. This is my time to heal those things, to recover, to heal those emotional traumas. And in doing so, you become more whole. And when you're more whole, you now are bringing that to the relationship. And that's why it's really important that, you take care of you, I take care of me. As individuals, we take personal responsibility. I'm going to do what I can to put myself in a great emotional state on the day-to-day. And you're going to do that too. And then when we come together, we can now come from a place where we're both, up here. And it's not always going to be like that, but if you think about it, if one person's up here and they're feeling great and one person's having a really emotionally low day, well, you now can support your partner. But if you're both really low, that is going to be a very challenging day, a very challenging month, a very challenging year, a very challenging relationship. Because if you're both coming at each other from very low states, emotional states, you can't help each other. You can't bring each other up. You can only bring each other down. And that's why it's really important to do that self-care, whatever that looks like for you.
I think and if you don't recognize that and you just blame it on your partner, then you leave that relationship and you go to the next one, and it's going to be great for the first few years, but then eventually you're going to be in those similar patterns. You're still going to have those same issues come to the surface. And so you have to look at that as the solution is not always leaving and replacing the person, because you're taking you with you to the next relationship and every other relationship. And so I think a lot of people, they don't want to do that deep work, and they just go from relationship to relationship to the relationship, thinking that it's men or women and not looking at themselves. And even I think you attract who you are, what you are, and you have to look yourself in the mirror and make changes within yourself if you want to attract something differently in your life. Like, I take responsibility for everything that flows into my life, whether it's a negative thing. I look at myself as responsible for attracting that in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's not true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe it's just unfortunate circumstance. But by me taking responsibility for it, it gives me the power and the ability to do something about it and to improve my consciousness, to increase my vibration, to take a responsibility on some level rather than just being a victim of things happening and occurring in my life. And we all know people that always have bad things happen to them, like just one after the other. Like, I remember, car accident, and then this happens, and that, like, it's just so many things. And then we also know people that all these positive things just keep happening in their life, one after another after another. And I think that has to do with, the energy that you're putting out and who you are and the level of consciousness that you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the damage of the victim mentality is it's the personal damage that it does to you. It just puts you in this place of helplessness. But if there is a way for you to take any kind of power back from whatever situation you're in, it's by saying, like, I have the ability to change. I have the ability to change how I feel. I have the ability to move forward. So there's a sense of empowerment and ownership and personal responsibility that is extremely beneficial in life. And like you said, it doesn't matter what the truth is, what the reality is. You get to choose every day what it is that you want to believe. And if it's something that can support you, if it's something that empowers you, then go for it.
Yeah. I think just to wrap this topic up, I think the most important quality, I've said this many times before, many people that come to me for coaching, for relationships, the most important quality, I think, in a partner, in a relationship, is someone who's open-minded. Someone who is open-minded, meaning they're interested in growth, improving themselves, taking a level of responsibility. If you're always open-minded, then someone can share with you a book, someone can share with you an idea, someone can share with you a blind spot that you might have, something that you're not aware of within yourself. And if you're an open-minded person, you're like, oh, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you for sharing with me this resource. Thank you for, do you want to go to therapy? Oh yeah, like, I'm open-minded to that. I'm down, right? Like, that's an open-minded person. They're open to things. They're open to experiences, learning things. And when you're open to things, you're going to accept things into your life that are going to allow your life to become better, versus someone who's closed-minded. Hey, I think we should go to therapy, or maybe here's like a coach or a seminar, or here's a book, or hey, why don't we sit down and watch this video on relationships? The closed-minded person's like, no, avoiding, defensive. I don't need that. I don't want help. There's nothing wrong with them that they need to work on or improve. It's only other people and all that. If you're with someone who's closed-minded, I don't know a solution to that. Because I have people that come to me, for example, like, this is one of the most challenging circumstances for me to coach someone through, is they're into personal development, right? And they found me or you, and they're like into our content or whatever, but their partner's not. And so they're like, how do I get my partner into self-development? How do I get my partner to into health? How do I get my partner, or like, hey, I'm trying to build an online business, but my partner's not supporting me. like that's very difficult because you can't change the other person. You just have to accept them for who they are. Yes, you can try to influence and share things here and there, but time and time, I know so many relationships where like one person's into personal development, they got into it at some point, they're making improvements in their life, the other one's not. They don't want to change, and they actually hold back your growth. Yeah. They make fun of you for it. They limit you. They're also actually even afraid of you growing, so they sabotage you in some ways because they're afraid that if you grow, then you'll grow apart and you'll be separate and they'll lose your love. And so there's like a psychological sabotage element that can exist where they don't want you to change, because if you change, then it's a loss of love that they experience. And so that's a very difficult dynamic. And I mean, obviously that like the ideal and that could be avoided if you meet someone and you make sure that there's someone that's also shares that same commitment to growth and improvement and being open-minded. If you're with someone like that, like our relationship works because of that. That's the core foundation of our relationship, is because, you know, we both have this open-minded growth mentality that allows, because if you have that, you can get through anything in your life. You can get through any problem, any challenge, every obstacle, because there's a solution to everything. There's a solution to every problem that has existed in a marriage or a relationship. Every fight, every conflict that you have had, there's books, resources, teachers, mentors, etc., where that's available, that if you're an open-minded person, you're willing to seek that out and learn, and then also apply it. Yeah. And when you learn things and you apply it, things get better. Yeah. And if you don't, things don't get better, they often get worse. So that just simple quality, I think, is one of the most important things, because no matter what it is, like if you lost attraction for your partner, if you're not in love in the same way, if you have different values, like whatever it is, I think all of those, majority of those challenges that exist in marriages can be solved and resolved if they both, because even if if you're in a really low place, but you're both like, you know what, we're committed, we're going to go to, therapy, counseling for years. We're going to find all the books, all the resources, all the teachers. Like it's almost impossible not to turn things around, in my opinion. Just in the same way in a business, your business can be at a low point, but if like you're always looking for new ideas and applying them to your business, it's only a matter of time before you turn your business around. If you've got a health challenge, and you could either be like, oh, this is the challenge that I have, I'm diagnosed with this and that's that, and I have to live with this for the rest of my life. Or you say, okay, you know what? I might have this, but I'm going to read the books. I'm going to try different diets. I'm going to try eliminating different foods. I'm going to try to be aware of my sensitivities to things. What's causing this flare up? I'm going to try different supplements. I'm going to try different treatments. I'm going to get different opinions from different doctors. I'm going to try different, fasting techniques and etc. You might not be able to cure whatever it is you have, but I can guarantee you'll be able to make it better. You'll be able to improve your situation, your circumstances as much as you can, as long as you have that mentality.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is also a commitment. It's the commitment that no matter what happens, we're going to find a solution. We're going to fix this. We're going to work through it. When you're in a long-term relationship, you don't know what the future holds. Who knows what kind of trauma or what kind of challenge awaits you in the future. God forbid something very, very, very challenging to go through. But we made a commitment when we married each other that we're going to figure it out no matter what it is. And that we know that every resource we need is out there as long as we're committed. So we made that commitment. And because we love each other, because we know what we have is sacred, is special, because we honor and respect this institution of marriage, this commitment that we made publicly, we will find the solutions no matter what. And so, we went through a rough patch after having Lucas. It wasn't easy. It's a big transition to go from being single and your selfish self your whole life to now having a child for the first time. And it wasn't a walk in the park, but we committed and we said, we're going to get through this. We're going to find the solutions. And we knew that we didn't want to do any undue harm during that time, any damage to the relationship that was something that you can't return from. And so we knew that this was just like a phase that, everyone warns you about having your first child and how it can be challenging in the relationship. So we knew that was to be expected. And we said, okay, let's figure out now that we have more time to look and take care of our relationship, let's figure out what we can do to fix some of these new challenges that we had that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So it's that commitment, and it's like you said, all the solutions are out there if you have the willingness, the desire to seek them out and to put that time and effort into really making a relationship one of the greatest. It's worth it. It's an opportunity to have something really incredible in life, something really special. Like we're all here to have these social experiences, to have friends and family and loved ones, and to love and be loved. And when you meet someone that you're compatible with, it now gives you such a great opportunity in life to really play and to make the most of life and to share all these amazing experiences with someone that you truly love, someone that you have history with, that you're building memories with. I think that's incredibly special.
Yeah, your relationship can be the greatest source of pleasure and joy and love, and it can be amazing. The best thing, nothing else can compare. Like I don't care making millions of dollars, traveling the world, whatever accomplishment, there's nothing that compares to the feeling of love. Love has inspired all the great songs and movies and stories and art and all of that throughout history. The power of love is the most powerful force in the universe, I think. And it can also be the greatest source of pain. And that's the thing, you have a choice. Either you're going to move towards this place of love and all of what it can provide for you. If you don't, then it can be a incredible source of pain. There could be no greater pain, in my opinion, than the pains that people can have in a relationship where, you feel not enough and insecure. And, I can think of the greatest pains of my life, probably you guys as well, heartbreak and etc. Those are really, really painful experiences in life. And so it only makes sense. Hey, like, let's give it our all. It's in my best interest, as I said, to make this as great as it can be. And yes, create success. Yes, do all those sort of things, but don't forget the main thing. The main thing is the main thing, which is your relationship is the foundation that's going to amplify your experience of life. And yeah, there's nothing greater than sharing your life with someone. When you are going through life, you can go through it alone and you can have a certain level of experience, but we all know when you can share your life with someone, the experience of life becomes better. I've traveled alone. That's great, but it's very different when you travel with someone that you're sharing the experiences with. Mm-hmm. You learn and grow. I've done that alone, or having someone you can share what you're learning and how you're developing and new ideas and have conversations and all of that. It's a greater experience, be able to share your life with someone. And
that's why a lot of people love having kids, is because they now get to show the kids the world and experience life again through the eyes of their kids. But I think also you have to be careful, because having kids can be a huge distraction from your relationship and also an excuse not to put in the time into your relationship. Yes, kids are, a priority, and they have needs that need to be met, but your relationship is also a priority, because if it wasn't for the relationship, you wouldn't have the kids in the first place. Yeah. So making sure to always come back to that and honoring your partner and respecting that.
And I think, a big thing is, you have to be aware of what you might be trying to avoid in your life. Maybe you're, people often avoid pain, right? So, if you're avoiding your relationship, you're avoiding having a conversation with your partner, you're avoiding, because maybe you feel like it's, because you feel like it's not enough, or, you haven't been given it your all or whatever. And it's an uncomfortable thing to admit that. And so we avoid things. And so we spend more time in business, or we spend more time in areas of life that we feel we have control of, and they're easier. And, my kids always love me, and I have, I'm a significant person to them, etc. And so we avoid the things that make us feel insignificant. But as long as you continue doing that, at some point it's going to bite you, right? So you have to have the courage to, not run from things and say, you know what, this is where we're at, but let's just make it a little bit better. It doesn't have to be transformed overnight, but just, start with little things you can do in a relationship, from praising your partner to acknowledging them, to giving them presents, a little time here and there, all those things. You don't have to always hold on to the ideal of what it originally was, like when you first started dating or whatever. You just have to, this is where we're at. Let's just make it better and better and better and better, and evolve it into something that's great.
Yeah. And I think also for me, now that we have Lucas, I really am aware of how I want him to have a really great model of what love looks like. So for example, when you walk into the room with him, I give you a kiss first, and then I give him a kiss. And he gets, I think he gets a little jealous sometimes. He kind of like Kobe, wants to get in between. And I think that's really cute. He likes it. But whenever he sees us kissing from a distance, he just starts laughing. For him, it's just like I don't know what he thinks, but I think that image for him to see mommy can kiss someone else. Mommy loves daddy. Yeah. I think that's a very important model for him. I want him to grow up knowing what true love looks like, mommy loves you 100% fully. Like he is my heart. He is my world. I'm completely dedicated to him and I'm head over heels for him. But I also love you and you are my world and I am head over heels for you, and that there's more than enough for everyone. I think that a lot of us don't grow up with models of what love looks like. And I think that causes a lot of damage because we bring that into future relationships. If think of this as a baby, your first experience of relationship, of love, is with your parents. It's with your mom, your dad, or whoever your primary caregiver is. And if your parents are, don't love each other, or they are, fighting with each other, or even if your parents say, for example, mom is emotionally unavailable, maybe mom loves you so much, but she has to work to provide for you, to make sure that there's a roof over your head. And so that when you are needing her, she's not there. Well, as a child, you don't have the development to process that. So the way you process it is, oh, mom doesn't love me, or mom loves work more than she loves me, or I'm not good enough. Or what if you grow up with a sociopath for a father, Donald Trump, for example, apparently his father was a sociopath, and then you grow up with that kind of experience, and that's your first experience of relationship. So you're going to carry that impression of what love means to you into all your future relationships until you become conscious of it. And that's why that becoming self-aware is really one of the greatest gifts that you can give to yourself and to your future partner and to the world as well, is becoming aware of oneself.
There's like a video that I was watching on Instagram where this guy was talking about how basically like him and his wife, when they had kids, like everything changed for them, and that basically they both like don't go on dates anymore. They don't do, all vacations, and all the, vacations are with their kids now and all that. And they've just like accepted that. That's the choice that we're making. And it was like kind of like a positive video for that. But I was reading a comment, and like there's actually a lot of people that disagreed with that approach. And this one person said, look, it's actually very short-sighted of you, because your relationship is forever, whereas your relationship as a parent, for example, as your kids, is only going to be for a certain period of time. And then, the way that you're living now, where you're just sacrificing everything for your kids and not taking care of your relationship, that's going to have a huge price 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And so it's very short-sighted. And this woman is like, trust me, your wife still wants to be dated. Like, even if you say that, oh, we're just going to like focus on the kids, like, no, you still have those needs and whatnot. And I think it's very easy. It's just kind of interesting for that, because I think a lot of people lose sight of the relationship and they become friends and a partnership, but they lose sight of the fact that no, like you still have to, maybe initially when you have a newborn, fine, like that's a phase, got to get through that, but you have to work on your relationship. You have to date each other. You have to have time for each other. You can't just sacrifice everything for your kids and look at it in that way. So that's an important. I think
that's hard for moms, because moms are self-sacrificial. I mean, just the act of bringing forth life into the world, it's not easy. It's very challenging. And then, having a newborn is very challenging, and it requires a enormous amount of self-sacrifice. You're putting that baby's needs 100% of the time before your own, because they have no way of surviving without you. You need to be there. So it is kind of embedded into a mother to be self-sacrificial. And so when kids are young, they are the priority. But I think that, this is the thing, is that this is the way I grew up as well. So my mom and my dad, they didn't have a great marriage. And my mom basically was distracted with the kids while we were young. And so she was able to hang on to that marriage for 19 years. They were together for 19 years because basically she was distracted with raising the children. So there was no time put into fixing the marriage, improving the marriage. It was like all the extra energy and time was just absorbed into the children. And she, for her, like she did something really great is she prioritized my brother and myself. And I totally understand that. I understand where she's coming from. But I also see it as like, wow, if they put an ounce of that time into their marriage and to try and make things work, and maybe it wasn't a good match, who knows? But if they, tried, maybe we would have had a better model for relationships. Like I have literally no model of what, I've never seen my parents kiss. I've never seen them hug. Like I've never seen any kind of intimacy between my parents that would help me to know what to bring forth into my marriage. Like I just didn't have any reference point. So I think that, making sure that you realize that, yes, my kids are a priority, but so is my relationship for the sake of my kids, right? Yes. I'm doing it not just for me and my husband. I'm doing it for them to have a beautiful model of what love looks like that they can carry forward into their marriages in the future. Yeah. Like I want Lucas to grow up, and I want him to grow up being like, wow, I want a love as great or better than the love that my parents had.
And you also have to teach your kids too that, they have to understand that, there's mommy and daddy time.
Yeah.
They have to understand that there's that relationship that exists as well. And I think there can be a negative component of where you just always just give all the attention to the kids and all of that, because then they grew up, believing that they're the center of everything. Yeah. And so they have to also learn and understand that there's the other relationship that exists as well, which is the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
Do you want to transition to some business? So with business, sure. Are you getting tired or?
I'm a little tired, but we can talk a little bit about business.
Okay. Well, we were talking earlier just about the process and the journey, and obviously there's a lot of people that, building their online business and going through that. What would you say, like for you looking back, and for what would you say for people like the journey in terms of like how would you look at the journey? What are the challenges, the struggles of an entrepreneur? Obviously you're in a very different place now where you've made it to the other side of that, but it's not easy to make that decision to build a business, because it does require a change in your life, your lifestyle, your habits, where you spend your time. There's sacrifices and trade-offs that you make. What would you say about that?
Yeah. I mean, when I talk to young entrepreneurs, I always kind of forewarn them that the beginning is always the hardest, because there's a lot of decisions that you have to make in the beginning. And then there's a lot of action without reward. And that's difficult because we're used to putting in the work and seeing, with a normal job, which we're all conditioned, most of us have had normal jobs. So we're putting in the hours today and we're going to get paid for that. There's a reward every 2 weeks for the time that we're putting in. And when you start your own business, there's a lag. There's a period of time where you're putting in a lot of action and you're making sacrifices to dedicate time to working on the business. Socially, maybe you're not seeing your friends as much. You're sacrificing certain things in your life so that you can have the time to work onto your business, and you're not seeing that payoff immediately. And maybe it takes months, it can be a while, and you have to have faith and trust that the results will show up. And so for myself, when I was starting my business, I had a lot of confidence in the process because I was able to gather references. And I think having references are really important. References as in other people that you've seen that have created that kind of success. For example, for me, I was building the Amazon business, and I met a lot of people at the amazing conferences who are making like $500,000 a month, incredible sales. I was like, I can't imagine making that much money, and just seeing how successful they've become. And they started at ground zero. Or, I just had a lot of, you were a reference for me too. You were making money online. I'd never met someone before who was making money working from their computer. I had only known people who had regular jobs. So for me, I had a lot of confidence in the process. And I think you need to have that confidence in order to be putting in all this work without seeing any payoffs immediately. But the beginning part is difficult because there's a lot of things that you have to try before you see results. As I alluded to before, you're probably going to fail multiple times. You're going to do something, it's not going to work out, or you make mistakes, and you have to push forward. You have to you fall down, you get back up, because it's after those failures that you start to see some successes based on the experience that you've learned. So I think that the beginning part is really difficult, mentally difficult, I would say. And also like setting up the foundation for your business can be extremely strenuous, and just a lot of different hats that you have to wear. You have to be the marketer, you have to be the content creator, you have to be the designer, you have to learn how to do copywriting, you have to learn how to do social media. Like there's just a lot of different things that you have to learn how to do, and it feels very overwhelming in the beginning. But when instead of seeing it as something that you don't really want to do, you see it as, wow, it's an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to learn all these different things. And, once I make enough money in my business, I can outsource those things. But by learning these things first, I now have a baseline of knowledge that when I hire someone, I can verify if what they're doing is correct. You don't want to just outsource things and not really know if the person's doing a good job or not. So all of that is the beginning parts of building a business. And that is just, it's difficult. And that's why a lot of people don't become successful, because they give up. And I think that, but with time, once you start to gain success, you gain momentum. Momentum is super powerful because it also motivates you. It gives you that sense of drive and purpose and energy to continue on. And for me, once I started to make money on Amazon, it's just like, that first 50 grand was the hardest, and then it just compounded. It's like 50 went to 100 real quick, 100 went to 200 real quick. So it's like getting the business off the ground is the most challenging part. And that's when people really need the most encouragement and motivation and mental, stamina to kind of get through those early stages.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they think originally that's going to be a lot easier than it actually is. They don't realize how challenging and hard it is. And, when you first get into it, you're not aware of all the things you're going to have to learn and do, and the ups and the downs and the failures and all of that. But I think in some ways, if you were to look at it, going into it, how hard it is, like, for example, if I now knowing what I know and what I've been through, if I was like on the other side starting again, it's kind of useful to be naive and ignorant to how hard it is, because if you knew how hard it is, you might not even start. You might not even do it. Right. Yeah. And so in some ways, like, you have to be aware that it's going to be a journey, and it might not happen as easily or quickly as you expect. But I think really what it comes down to, like, you really know who is going to make it or not. Like, you can kind of always tell, like, you can tell based on their mindset, how committed they are, how serious they are about this. And
how many excuses they have. That's a big,
there's many people I think that casually get into an online business. Oh, it's going to be easy. I saw Tatiana and Stefan on YouTube. Oh, of course, they're super successful. I could do that. How hard could it be? Right. And they get into it, they buy a course, and then they're like, oh, damn, like, I have to change my life. I have to spend hours every week doing this. I have to make sacrifices in my life. I've got to invest my money. I need to learn all these other skills that I didn't know I had to learn. But that's just the reality of any business, right? And an online business is no different. So what it comes down to is like, how bad do you want this, the life that is available, the success, the freedom, all of that. And for me, that's what kept me going. That's what kept you going, is that we just knew that this was going to be worth it, and it was worth it. And I didn't care what I had to go through, what I had to learn, the ups and the downs, everything that I learned, every experience that I had, I just always felt like I'm getting there closer and closer and closer. And the valuable part for me, I think, was always exposing myself to content, books. I mean, there wasn't many more success self-help books, but going to events and seminars, like when you go to these seminars, these events and these masterminds, like you get so inspired. You're like, wow, amazing. Like that person's living that life, that's what's possible here. So like going to these environments, and it becomes more real for you every time you do that. And I can't tell you how many courses that I went through, but every course, like I always got excited with something that I learned that I could apply, because I saw the possibility of everything that I was learning. I saw the possibility of what it could lead me to and what it could create. And so I think like if you really get into the world, you really can get very inspired, and you get like you kind of get conditioned and programmed by it too, like the mindset of success and the mindset of freedom. And there's obviously a huge internet marketing, online business, entrepreneurial community of people that think a certain way, and there's all the content of people talking about success and freedom and all of that. You really get consumed by that, and that also just kind of fuels you to keep going. But the initial part is difficult, the changes you have to make in your life, but it's just the reward and the results and the life that you can create that just keeps you going.
And you just believe in that. I think that the key, there's, my tell for when someone's really gonna pull it off is the mental, the position that they hold. I can always tell when someone comes to me and they are complaining about all the things that they don't know how to do to build this business. So when I used to do coaching, I get people who would say like, well, I don't know how to create social media content. I don't know how to do paid advertising. I don't know how to do copywriting. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do like just all these I don't knows. And I could always tell, okay, this person doesn't have the mindset of success. Because to me, the mindset of success is seeing all the things that you don't know how to do, but instead of seeing them as obstacles, you see them as opportunities. You say, wow, what an opportunity it is for me to learn something new. And also realizing that I can learn this because there's an abundant amount of resources out there for me, most of them free. And when I learn how to do this, I've now grown as a human being. I have a new skill set, and this skill set will only serve me in the future, not just with my current business. But I had just one example for you. When I was building my Amazon business and I was all, getting popular on YouTube, I had this company in Canada that reached out to me, a big company. They wanted me, so they were transitioning from just selling their products in physical stores to now doing online retail, and they wanted to hire me and paid me a great salary and give me my own personal assistant to move all their products online and to push them on Amazon. And, I didn't go to university. Why was I going to get paid such a great salary? I didn't get any formal training. All I did was just learn how to do something myself in my business. And it's a simple skill, but it's a highly valuable skill. And so all the things that I learned in my business, I was always excited to learn them. I was always excited to learn how to do all these little things that now I don't really need to do because I outsource a lot of these things. I pay people to do them because I value my time. But at the beginning, when I didn't have the money to pay people, I learned how to do them myself. And I'm very glad that I learned how to do that because I gained knowledge. And that knowledge is what created the success in my business. So that's the kind of mindset you really need to adopt. Stop making excuses that I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. Well, freaking learn how to do it. There's a million resources out there for you. And if you really want success, you'll stop saying, I don't know how.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to adapt and continue to learn. That's, again, it comes down to the growth mindset and the growth mentality that you have to have. So how about we wrap it up here? We'll maybe do another one and go deeper into business. It'd actually be helpful for you guys to share with us different questions that you guys might have for us, different topics that we could discuss on these podcasts that we can go deeper into. So if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, let us know. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And we hope that you guys have been enjoying this. But anything last that you want to say?
No, thanks for sticking with us, guys. We'll talk to you in the next episode.
All right. Take care.
Bye.